We're here at the MIDCONVO podcast.
What
Ed and
up?
I are sitting down with two incredible special guests here in Los Angeles, Reese Hopper and Jeremiah Davis. They're with Us Versus Them.
We should add poppers.
Sound effect.
And guys, we're so stoked to be in your house, your spot. And we can't wait to hear more about, Jeremiah, how you started Us Versus Them, and Reese, how you became a producing partner. Let's roll the intro music.
Reese and Jeremiah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think for those who may not know who you are, maybe Jeremiah could go first real quick. Just share us about your business and who you are.
Yeah. Jeremiah Davis, 29 years old. Wow, this is like an intro.
Nice.
Elevator pitch.
I am a creator here in Los Angeles. I was like hustling on the freelance world, and then used to work at an ad agency, started my own, and I've been working with Reese for over 6 years now, and we kind of are just putting our head down ever since and working with cool people and doing projects that we love.
Rad.
That's awesome.
Rad. Reese?
Yeah.
Hey, speed dating. Let's hear it.
Speed dating.
Jeremiah and I had our first speed dating session in college. That's how we met each other. No, not on speed dating.
Dude, also the intro sounded like we were together. It was like, thanks for inviting us into your home. This is not me. This is home.
No,
Yeah, they're just
Jeremiah I
friends and
met in
business
college, and at that time he was doing a lot of videos. And sometimes we would brainstorm the videos in the library together. Post-college, he launched into full-on video stuff. I was doing freelance stuff, and then we reconnected later, like in 2017, he brought me on to produce some of his videos, and then produced more and more and more and more, and now here we are.
That's amazing. I want to just call out that it's cool to see you guys friends and then now working together on projects, because I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit, but you guys both have your own gifts and skill sets that complement one another. Jeremiah, I want to start with you because we got connected. Dang, Ed, Ed's thirsty.
Sorry, I just totally forgot to get my drink.
I just
You gotta
cracked open
kickstart it.
a
Every time you
Troy.
crack it,
Yeah.
you bam.
Boom.
No, we should break your format, and you should talk about how we met right now.
Yo, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
real quick.
that's actually a
Seriously,
great
let's Make
story.
it about us, because this
No,
was
it's a great story, and I'm sure nobody knows about it.
I
And I
wanna-
would love to tell you my version of it, because Reese was actually a part of it, and it's really funny, and I got in a lot
Dang.
of trouble
Yeah.
hanging out with you the first day.
all right.
True story, true
Are
story.
you serious?
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's great.
So in
Wow.
college, I was, I guess, kind of a networker trying to connect with people all over, and got plugged in with these guys that started The Buried Life. Dave Lingwood came out to LA to hang out with him. He's like, yo, actually, if you don't mind, this guy Jeremiah is going to join us for lunch. This was probably 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Jeremiah shows up. Jeremiah, correct me if I'm wrong. I swear at that time, dude, your social media was under 10K, under 5K.
Yeah.
And you were posting like GoPro stuff.
big time.
And we kind of
A
stayed
little bit
connected
past
a little
GoPro, but
bit.
Yeah.
And every time I came to California, we connected and just kind of like checked in with each other. And it was almost like every couple years. And fast forward to now, it's cool because I've seen you as a friend, but also as just someone in the industry, absolutely freaking crush it. And you've paved the way for a lot of freelancers in, first of all, the music industry, or kind of in the music scene, but also as someone that's now working with these massive brands. What the frick?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, my version of meeting you is it was actually the second time we hung out. It was in Venice. You were shooting photos on like some sick Abbott Kinney house. And I was like just trying to shoot with anyone and everyone and do cool stuff. And like Abbott Kinney was like the super like wealthy, cool hip zone. You were shooting with like a cool model. And I was like, I've got to shoot with Paul. Dave connected me. Dave was like one of my biggest contacts at the time. And it was like, I have to go. And I call it the year of yes, where I just said yes to everything. And Reese and my now fiance Laura was like hanging out on the west side, and I like ditched them to go hang out with you.
Reese,
Wow.
And Reese didn't care at all, but like I think Laura like drove out like an hour to come hang out, and I was like, I'll be back in an hour, and it took like 3 hours, and then she was like, I've got to go home now. And
No,
like
what
go to
happened
work.
was you guys were taking me and Mary and my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, to the airport.
That's
But then
right.
Jeremiah was like, oh, let's stop by Venice. And they were taking us to the Long Beach airport, which we didn't have a good understanding of the geography of LA. They're not
Yeah.
close. And he's
Yeah.
like, let's just stop by Venice and then we'll go to Long Beach. So we go to Venice and then he splits and then me and Marion and Laura are like having lunch.
Right.
And then it comes time to go to the airport and Jeremiah has nowhere to go. So Laura just drives me and Marion to the airport. And she was unhappy.
Yeah, she was mad.
That was a fun hang.
It was great, but then she was like, "Who the hell is this Paul Weaver guy?"
Dang, and at that time,
Paul, did you know this?
I didn't know that side of it. Dang, that's why you were stressing bullets at lunch, checking your phone.
Dang, it wasn't even that hangout. It was like the next hangout.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Anyways, we can move on, but
No, that's awesome. So going from, kind of shooting and everything and anything to getting plugged into the music industry, I just want to talk about that little bit right there.
Yeah.
How that happened, because I feel like that'll contribute to kind of how you and Reese work together now, us versus them, and all those things.
yeah. What about the music industry? Do you want to know like how I started?
How the
in
heck
it?
did you
How
get
it all
into it?
go?
Like, what was the first
in-
yes?
Instagram DM. Basically, my job, like I worked at an ad agency. I was like an intern in college. And my job was just to like break through people's emails, like the cold outreach. And it was just like using super clever tactics. And then I was like, why don't I do this for myself? And Facebook bought Instagram. The first feature that came out was Instagram DM. Everyone like moaned that Facebook was going to ruin Instagram. And we were just like, screw this feature. And I was like, no, like you message your friends on Facebook, but I don't really follow my friends on Instagram. I follow like other photographers and stuff. And this is like 2016. And so I was like, DM'd Chris Burkard, and it was like, hey dude, like, let me know how I can help out and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, dude, here's my phone number. Hit me up whenever you're in the area. I was like, sick. And it's like, boom. And I was like, I reached out to Rory Kramer and I was like, hey man, like you don't shoot any drone footage. Like I have a drone. Let me know if you need it. I'll work for free. And he's like, can you go on a hike next Thursday? And I was like, yeah,
Wow.
sick. And then basically I would say like 2 out of 3 people I DM'd responded. Even if it was like a no, it was like, hey, I've got nothing for you, but stay in touch. Or like, stay in touch, follow back up, whatever. And that kind of led me to meet Rory. I shot for Blau at my first like ever like, and I didn't club or party in college. And so like the first club I ever went to, I was working, shot with him, and then kind of just like snowballed
Kept
from
going.
there. Yeah. First tour I got brought on was Justin Caruso. We did 30 shows. He opened for Blau. And we did like 30 shows. We did a Friday, Saturday, Sunday for like a whole summer.
Jeez.
And I like really honed in. It was like the perfect freelance gig thing because it was like weekends, and then I had to turn around the video by like Wednesday, but I had my week. So it like paid me consistently. I had a consistent deliverable. I was traveling, and then I had to like reinvent the wheel every single week. And then while I was networking with other people, they were watching it and being like, oh, this kid's getting good.
That's
So
awesome.
that was part of it. Yeah.
I want to ask real quick before we move on to the next thing. What was your portfolio like at that time when you were rolling into DMs? Like, did you have a portfolio because you were at an advertising agency?
Yeah. The first paid project I did was at 16 years old. I pitched a local family in Claremont for family photos, and I didn't know how to take any photos or videos, but I knew how to like sell the vision, and I wanted to learn how to shoot photo and video. So I ended up just doing that. College, I did a lot of freelance work for like local businesses and had all my own gear and stuff like that. But I wasn't like doing cool, trendy, innovative lifestyle content. It was like very much like a local coffee shop that was like, hey, we've got a new flavor coming out, or like, let's do something for Halloween or whatnot.
Yeah. It was the season of like, literally, I'll do anything and everything.
Yeah. And then I did like travel adventure stuff my senior year. And I guess that was my like travel portfolio, which like resonated with the DJ world of like, we need someone to make us look cool traveling. And I was like, I just need cool music to edit my travel stuff too. So let's partner.
Bro, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Reese, Ed and I were talking about on the drive here how cool it is that you've kind of played this behind the scenes role on a lot of big projects, like massive projects. And just in the industry, it's sometimes the guy that has the best personal brand or is like the camera op that is almost always front and center. Tell us a little bit about what the heck you do, because I feel like it's so extremely valuable for freelancers, no matter if you're a beginner or if you're at a point where you're like, I'm hitting a freaking ceiling. Like, what are you up to and what are you doing?
Yeah, for sure. I jumped on to produce. The first video I remember producing was a music video for Jeremiah. He was doing it for Tiesto.
Hey.
Small little
Wow.
budget, little
Sick.
like group of friends camping, music video, run and gun, shoot. And he's like, "Hey, can you help produce this?" And I didn't know what that meant at all. But I was like, "Okay, we just got to keep it on time." So I just made a little schedule and it just told people what the schedule was a few times throughout the day. And the video turned out all right. You know, things stayed on schedule for the most part and we got through it. And I kind of got the producing bug, I think, at that point. Plus Jeremiah just had a bunch more videos coming through because of all the work that he had done so publicly online with the Chainsmokers and then, you know, his other bodies of brand work too. So just more and more projects came his way that he brought me on to produce in various capacities. And it wasn't something that I set out to do, but I realized pretty quickly that it was a great complementary skill set to have, especially in LA. Everybody wants to be a director or a photographer or a DP. Mm-hmm. Even the gaffer that you hire or the audio guy has like a cinematographer.
Low-key have a cinema build at home. That just like in the closet, it's like one day I'm
Everyone's
gonna
got
be
an
a
agenda
DP.
to be something else.
Yeah,
That's so
totally.
Their
funny.
number one rule of thumb. It's like,
And I'm-
Reese, let's find someone who doesn't want to be us.
Yeah,
Like, that's
wow.
what you have to find.
Totally. And I never owned a camera. But you know, as a kid, you know, I would shoot little videos like with my brothers and stuff. So there was always like fun, you know, like interest in the world, but I knew it wasn't anything that like I wanted to put my skills into at that point. So it was a good complementary skill set to have because I felt like I could jump on a lot of projects with Jeremiah and with other people in sort of like a non-threatening way, not only just to them, but for me in the sense of like, oh, I'm not tempted to like try to step on your toes and tell you what to do because you do that and I do this, you know?
Which part of producing would you say is like the most fun for you, or you find the most enjoyment in?
Well, it's also the part that I find the most stress in, which is solving
We were just
problems on the
talking
fly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
that's
Having to
real.
solve problems on set on the fly is the most stressful part, but also the most rewarding because if you can break down a problem from what it feels like, oh, this is an insurmountable problem. We can't get the shot that we wanted to. But if you can break it down and understand what did this shot try to achieve? What was this shot trying to achieve creatively or emotionally? And then rebuild a new solution from that same place, then, you know, you can solve those problems. So that's an exciting thing for me. Like once everything's set up, once all the cameras are good and everything's set up and ready to go, you're just kind of sitting waiting for a problem to happen because they do. They always will.
Wow.
And then try to stay in the moment and present enough to like solve that in the best creative way possible with the budget and time you have, you know?
That's dope. I know there's people that are like, okay, how did you get to like, when you were on that Tiesto project, that was your first time kind of probably Googling like, all right, what are producer roles and responsibilities? I'm guessing you wore a lot of hats up until that point, which I feel like really helped you in owning that role. What are some of the hats that you wore up like to be a producer almost? Like what did you test out and what did you try on before you were like, I'm a producer?
Yeah. Out of college, I was managing social media accounts for different brands and businesses. And I wasn't particularly successful at it, but it taught me a lot of things about, you know, client management, client communication, keeping things on time, organizing assets and all that stuff. And kind of what I didn't like about social media management was that it felt like an endless hamster wheel in the sense of like you just got to keep churning out content every day and it never ends. Whereas producing a project, there's a storyline built into it. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. And when you finish it, it's really rewarding. And, you know, to be able to deliver that content to another social media manager and then be done with it.
Dude, you know what's
good.
so stressful about, because I used to do social media management at my last job. Are you guys familiar with like Rhino sliders, like Rhino camera gear? They make like motorized sliders. So I used to work there actually for 2 years as like their content, social media. One thing I hated about social media managing is just you're responsible of the growth of the social media, because obviously the client wants to see their account grow. But then if you're also creating the content, like sometimes those things are not aligned.
Yeah.
Like if you're a creative at heart and you want to create dope stuff, sometimes that's not really what gets the clicks or gets the engagement, right? So there's like a conflict of interest there for some social media managers if they're both creating and responsible of growing. So I love like that's what I love about the video production world, because it's so like everyone's so defined in their roles, right? Like once you create the deliverable, there's like an agency that is required to push it and actually get it in front of people. And you have the creative team. which is not a very clear line sometimes when you're first starting out.
Yeah. Especially these days with all the opportunity with trends.
Yeah.
You know, it's very tempting, I think, to just follow a trend,
That's cool.
but then not stay true to your creative zone. So there is a balance there. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally the like heartbeat of us versus them to solve that solution. It was like, there's two wars going on with brands. It's like, how do we sell a product, and how do we also like grow a brand? Wow. And it's one or the other. Like if you look at every company, they have $1 million like breadwinner iPhone only UGC ad that just sells the crap out of their product. And then they have a video that they spent way too much money on that makes them look like the coolest thing that hasn't made them $1. And they're just like, dang it, both of these, you know, it's like, how do we merge the two? And we're like, we're going to start an agency that makes you look really cool and gets people to buy your product. Wow. And do it all in one production.
All right. So it's cool hearing what us versus them is about and kind of that niche that you guys fill. How did you guys go from like friends, roommates, hopping on a Tiesto project as a producer to now like working together on those things? And kind of how do you work together? Because I know, listen, when I first started as like a freelancer, I went into business with one of my best friends, freaking flopped. That dude, we don't talk anymore. So like most people often here don't go into business with your friends, don't go into business with your family. Jeremiah, tell me how that works, because I know that you've done a really good job at letting certain people in on your life and on your projects in order to make sure it reflects who you are and the type of ideas that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Reese is a better way of communicating this, but like I think in short, it's like we're both really good communicators and have been early on. And then it also started before there was ever like a sense of like, Jeremiah, you just asked like, how did you let someone into your life? It's like, I didn't let anyone into my life. I was a college kid trying to do cool stuff with cool people. Yeah. And Reese was like the closest person to me at the time. So
that's awesome.
And then I think because we both went to school for communications, it was just like, we knew the obvious thing was like, we're going to hate each other at the end of this. So it's like, hands in, we're going to guarantee that we'll walk away before that ever happens. And like, this is not worth it. Like no amount of money. And I think like to some regard, Reese and I just aren't that money driven. Like we are driven by money, but it's like, it's not the end all for our like lives. And we just kind of like want to have a good time, make cool stuff, make some money. And like, yeah. And I think that's like been a certain aspect of like, yeah, I think that just was like a big reason of our success. And like, you can say that, but if you don't actually mean it or like live by it, then it's like, it just doesn't work out. And for Reese and I up until this point it has. And we've definitely, I mean, we've had arguments and stuff. We've had difficult, I've probably had some of the like best, most difficult conversations that have just been like, dude, if we weren't this mature, like this would be the end right here, you know? And we both also were like, we could end it right here and walk away because this is like a perfect red flag we talked about, and like, you know, and
that's real.
We're able to work past it.
I picture you guys just fighting it out, doing like a pillow fight over like some bad like project that flopped or something.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I have to give props to Jeremiah too. I mean, we both studied communication in college and stuff, but he really just took it upon himself, and does with many other people in his life, to just be very clear and upfront. And it's not always like easy, fun, fluffy, nice conversations, but like whenever I'm communicating with Jeremiah, I know 100% like this is legit, this is how he feels, and that's amazing information to know if you want to have a long-term relationship, really how someone feels, you know? So yeah, like you said, you know, there have been some moments where it's felt a little bit spicy and like, oh,
yeah,
you know,
totally.
are we gonna, you know, what's happening here? But like he mentioned, just having that mindset of, what's the goal here? Is this worth it? We can always head back to like, we're just here to have fun and just make cool stuff. And we have left opportunities and money on the table when it doesn't feel like that, or if it feels like it's getting too hot and heavy, and you know, but yeah.
That's awesome.
I also think like Reese and I, like it's just been like a blast, like a roll, like we don't come from like extravagant families. So for us to live in Los Angeles,
it's already a win.
In like a tiny, like a studio apartment on a bunk bed. Like that was our first spot. And it was just like, we were kings, you know, we were like living the dream. And like, we look back at it and you're like, well, you cannot pay me to do that, you know? but like in the moment, it was like, it was like the best thing ever. And so I think that was like a huge factor into it too. But yeah, I think even in like the spiciest of times, Reese and I like looked at each other and we're like, we're like, yo, what a bad adjective. We're like, you have to trust that whatever the other person's saying is like, they're telling you everything.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
good. It's a trust bit.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people in the creative industry, this probably could apply to like every industry, but especially freelancers, sometimes it can get probably pretty lonely. Like you feel like it's you against the world trying to make it as a creator, like in the industry. What advice would you have for someone who's trying to somewhat get connected, right? Like what if they don't have any like cool people they look up to around in their circle and like they're trying to make something happen, but they just feel super alone? Would you have any tips for those types of people? How do you start? Like, where do you even look?
Yeah. Well, it's so important. The greatest indicator of your success as a freelancer or as a creative is the ability to stick in it over the long term. It's not immense amounts of talent or connections or whatever. It's if you can stick it out in the long term. And the greatest help to you sticking it out in the long term is having relationships and having a community of people around you to help you through those difficult moments. If you don't have that, you can neglect those relationships in the short term and probably get farther faster in the short term, but you'll burn out in the long term, you know? So what you're saying, it's so important to do. And it's not easy to make new friends in a new city or to meet new people. It's difficult work, definitely.
That's awesome.
But it's so important. Yeah.
I was thinking about, we've got a mutual friend, but he's always like friend zoned in dating relationships. I'll bring this back full circle, but I want to see if I can sync up this at the end. But he's always getting friend zoned, and I'm just like, I hang out with him a lot, and I'm like, man, how can I help this guy? Like, how can I be a wingman? And he like lives kind of far away, and I know his other roommates, like they're all single. They kind of live in like not like a rural place, but they're not in a big city. And like this guy has everything against him. And then I think I've seen him like talk about how he approaches like meeting new women and stuff. And I just know we both went to like a conservative school, and like we just didn't come from this like fraternity oorah, like let me drop a pickup line or like let me be aggressive. It's like, and I was like, this guy needs to hang out with my other friend who is super aggressive, but like charming, respectful, and everything. I'm like, this guy just like people
Just respectfully.
like we're ordering at a diner or something, and it's like you could tell this like 40-year-old woman is like into him because he's just been like crazy good eye contact. He's like, hey, I like that necklace. Like, like looks like a family friend gave it. That means a lot to you. And they're like, yeah, how did you know? And they're like talking about this, and they're like, okay. So I'm like, dude, my other friend needs to hang out with this friend. And I think it's like until, you know, the friend that's always friend zoned hangs out with people that are like being progressive and reaching out in like uncomfortable ways.
Yeah.
You're not actually ever going to like feel comfortable doing that. And like from a creative that's not like, the reality of it is like the best relationships in the creative world comes from you meeting a stranger on the Venice Beach boardwalk and like going for a 2-hour walk or going for coffee for 30 minutes. And they're like, hey, I'm going to West Hollywood right now, like 40, like going way the opposite way. I'm not coming back, but like I have this dope shoot for Sunset if you want to come. And then you like jump in a stranger's car, drive across the city, shoot like a sick car for Sunset, and then you pay for a $50 Uber back home, and you're like, you know, you go tell that to your mom or your friend who works at a Starbucks, and they're just like, you spent what on an Uber? Like you hung out with who? Like, but that's, you know, that's like how it happens. And until you like hang out with someone, and that's literally how you and I met, you know, is like, like we met because of Dave, but we actually continue to hang out because I met up with you
and the touching base and the connecting. Yeah.
Like I did that, you know, like I abandoned literally my friend, my two most important people. Yeah. But like, and it was like, it was
that's hilarious.
But that's what you have to do, you know? And it's like,
you got to put yourself out there.
And I forget about too, like I hang out in Venice, and like, I hang out with a lot of people that don't travel a ton or not in the creator space or aren't like traveling to go shoot a freelance or a passion project in Bali or whatnot. But when I go and do that, I get in that headspace again, and I get all fired up about like, let me go meet up with these strangers. But then I get into this groove of like Venice where I'm like, I'm not going outside today. I'm just working from my home.
Go homebody on it.
Yeah, I become a homebody, and then you're like, I have not pushed forward my network at all.
That's awesome.
You know,
I want to shift directions for a second. With the MIDCONVO, we love like breaking down the walls, tearing down the walls to have conversations that, let's be honest, like most freelancers aren't willing to have, or entrepreneurs. I want to hear from you, Jeremiah, first. What has been, you know, probably your favorite project that you've been a part of within the last couple of years, that you can remember like, oh, that was a freaking awesome project, maybe because of the people that were involved, or maybe because it really sparked other work that you never thought yourself would like be in those positions?
Yeah.
Was there a project that like stands out?
In the last couple of years, it's happened like twice on other calls where I'm like, I literally need to pull up my Instagram or Dropbox to like look at. There was one year we did like 98 video, like delivered like projects. So
Wow.
there's like cut downs from that too. Where we did 98 different projects.
That's
and
insane.
when you think about that, you're like,
Like more than 2
That
a
was
week.
grind season.
some like really stick out, but you know, at a certain time, it kind of all folds over. I think the ones that like stick out are the ones that we're able to push ourselves creatively the most, or it's just like a hyper unique experience. We did, just because like my main background is music, nightlife, event space, like most of it is fire drill. Like most of it's like, hey, can you come to South Africa in 2 weeks? And you're like, cool, where are we? And they're like, stop asking questions. Just like, you're on a plane, you show up to the show, and you're like, all right, cool, everything's taken care of. Then you like show up, you're jet lagged, you're whatever, and you're just like trying to like film slow-mo clips of like people walking into things, or like shaking hand with like the president of the country, and you're like, that's a big moment. And you're like, hey, can we do that again? And they're like, we're moving. Can we? They're like, we can, but we're not. And you're like, this would really be great for the social media thing.
Bro,
like,
that's
we're
great.
moving, you know. Like,
You
I've got a
gotta
job
always
to
be
do.
on.
Like, I've
Yeah.
got one too. Like, I don't care about your job. So anyways, with music, it's like we had this project for around the F1 race in Austin where we were able to shoot like Post Malone, the Kid Laroi, and Zed. And there was a few other DJs that played, but we just had 3 weeks, 4 weeks to plan, or 6 weeks, something like that, and a proper budget. And we were shooting for the actual people that were hosting the event. So they wanted like this full coverage. So it wasn't just for one artist. And we kind of just had all the like keys to the castle. We could go anywhere we wanted. We had pulled to kind of like say we were with these people, we were with these people. And then we had an appropriate budget to where we could like get some VFX people and work on stuff. So we did this like crazy CGI of like Post Malone, Zed, and Leroy. We built out like their own like F1 car that's like custom to them.
Insane.
F1 suit, helmets, and it's like Post Malone's helmet has like all his tattoos on the helmet.
Yeah.
Whoever's watching on YouTube or video version of this, we will throw it up and they can see what you're talking
sick.
about.
Yeah. And that was cool. And that's just like stuff you can't do without time and money.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you're in the music scene, it's like they don't want to spend money. And so they just pigeonhole everyone into time. You know, It's just like, we're going to book you last minute. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, totally.
Yeah.
So there's no time to spend the money.
Yeah. It's just like this weird pigeonhole thing. So it's really hard to get like a proper cool music budget, especially for like the live event space of it all.
Sure.
So that one stuck out. I went to a lot of really cool places with Sea-Doo. Went to Turks and Caicos, which was like I've always wanted to go. It like wasn't a crazy lucrative project by any means, but it's like I got to hang out with Chris Rogers, who's an amazing YouTube creator, and like haven't seen him in a couple years, and to be able just to like those are the trips that you're like, this is incredible. Like I'm in Turks and Caicos getting paid to just rip Sea-Doos around for 4 days in a row.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it was
super awesome.
So
Dude,
that sort of stuff is like super fulfilling for me too. Like I've realized like I had like a pretty massive like head honcho at Snapchat early on ask me. It was like when I first met you, he's like, he shot me straight and he was like, he's like money, experience, or relationships. And he was like, you need to figure out your priority list and like what is most impactful and meaning to you. And then I was like, and then he kind of like waited for me to respond. And he was like, don't respond. He's like, figure it out. He's like, whatever you're going to say is what you think I want to hear. And he's like, I could care less. And he was like, Jeremiah's like, I've talked with you 3 times. I wish you the best. You're a nice kid, but like, I just don't care. Like, so
Wow.
like, but he's like, you could say money and I'm not going to judge you that your relationships are less important. And he's like, and that can change over time. And it took me probably 3 years to take him serious, to get real. And so much
That's
wasted
valuable
time.
advice.
So much wasted time to just like not be real with myself of like, what's the most valuable thing? And I'm like, experience is most valuable. You know, like
Wow.
me meeting you is a perfect example. It was like two most valuable people in my life went and chose an experience over it.
That's cool.
And like, you know, sometimes that's an awful thing and people don't want to be friends with people like that, but it's like you find your boundaries. And
That's cool, man. That's
Yeah.
super like self-reflective. I feel like people who are listening might be like, dang, what's mine? Like, is it money? Is it relationships?
Yeah.
Is it experiences? Because yeah, like it's cool that the guy said, don't tell me your answer. Like I could care less.
Yeah.
Because you might say what you think people are like, oh no, it's relationships because I love the people around me. That's like what everyone maybe wants to hear. But some people, it's just they're in a season where like, I need money. Like I want money. That's like the number one thing, you know? So that's really cool.
I think anyone listening is like, what do you think people, what do you feel like you should say? And what do you actually want to say? And make two lists. Like what does your parents want to see you say? What does your girlfriend want to see you say? What does your boyfriend want to see you say? And then what do I actually want? And like a rule is that it has to be different than the other one.
That's good. Dude, it's just crazy talking with you guys because we're like friends, but also I feel like both of you guys have been in rooms with massive influencers, celebrities. You've gotten to work with some massive brands. And I'm curious to hear what is like living in LA and working with these massive projects and like being in rooms with them and shooting for Chainsmokers, Justin Bieber, all these things and producing for projects like that. How do you like find yourself? How do you humble yourself? Because I'll tell you right now, there's people that I look up to that would never hop on a podcast like this. There's people that I've met where would never answer my call no matter who introduced us. I've been to LA multiple times. I've been at all of your guys' houses and condos over the last couple of years. And it's so cool because whenever I leave, I go back to Minnesota or Miami and I'm like, these guys are freaking awesome. And you're on projects that most people look at and are inspired by and look up to. Jeremiah, how the frick do you humble yourself in an industry where there's a lot of people that aren't?
Talent fees. You paid our talent fee on time.
Yeah, you
You'll
gotta
be there.
We
We're
just,
already on time.
we
Dude.
just started this pod, but we went broke to get these guys on.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest.
Reese is catching up too.
Bro, we know a couple. No, honestly, it was my uncle. He's a pretty big investor, and
Hey, good to see him.
he came
Whatever.
through.
Quite frankly, I don't care who pays as long as it gets paid.
No, but seriously, like you've been in rooms with these big people.
I don't know. Like there's people with crazy. It's honestly, it's like those people are on a different wave, and good for them. Like if you were the president tomorrow, like respectfully, you wouldn't have time for us, and right. And it's like Paul's a great guy, and he's got a bigger calling, you know. And like Justin Bieber has a bigger calling in life than to like slow down for someone like me. Doesn't mean he won't or he's an awful person for it, but it's just like. It's almost a lost cause to try to like build something out there. So with that concept and perspective, it's like people, like everyone in this room is like, there's actual real like relational value to build here because just we're available for that for the most part. So when you put yourself up against like other celebrities, it's like, and that's honestly the best approach. That's when you actually are able to like connect with these people because you're like, I don't care about you, and I realize you don't have time for this, and then that's when they're like, oh, this guy really doesn't care. Let's go rip a shot with him.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so like backwards how you think you'd want to be, but
Yeah.
that's true.
That's
But
good.
What about for Reese? Do you have any thoughts on that part about just maybe remaining humble and producing some of these bigger projects? I mean, for me, getting on projects when I see some of the budgets that I like. Every year, it's like, oh, that's a pretty big budget. Oh, that's nothing compared to last year. This is a big budget. So it's like, as a producer, you see the budgets climb. You're probably like,
Big booty budgets.
yeah. How do you like set that baseline for yourself?
Yeah. As soon as you start playing the name dropping game or the budget dropping game, there's always going to be someone who's going to beat you at that. You know, if you want to get scrappy in that way, someone will get scrappier, you know? So it's never a game that I wanted to play because it just didn't ever feel that strategic for me. You know, I could go around and be like, oh, I've worked with these guys and these guys and these guys. There's dozens and dozens, hundreds of people who, you know, they're working on projects 10 times the size of mine, you know? So it's like, it's not strategic. What is strategic is the relationship actually, you know, and it's twofold because it's important. It makes everyone's life better. But if I can connect with you as a person, it doesn't matter if have, you know, a huge client list that's amazing and amazing logos on my website or not. This is the priceless element. You know, this human connection is priceless. any client that you have on your website or any project that you've done or any budget that you've worked with before, you could calculate a number value for that, but you can't calculate a number value for a relationship.
That's good.
So, I mean,
It
makes the world a better
golden
place,
nugget.
but it's also more strategic.
Yeah. Wow. I love how humble you are in even saying that, because most people don't see it that way. And again, when you value relationships and experiences over money and fame and ego, it brings you in so many more rooms where you're going to be able to thrive and grow, which brings me to, because you guys aren't going to bring it up, Jeremiah, you just came back from the Super Bowl. I've always wanted to go to the Super Bowl. Next time, invite me. But tell me a little bit about the Super Bowl experience, because you were in a country, I forget what country. Tell me about that. You went to Super Bowl.
Super Bowl. Ironically, or funny enough, I got invited to the Super Bowl 3 hours before. I needed to be like in a lobby of a hotel, which 3 hours, like you're like, if you told me to be somewhere in LA in 3 hours, like you're like, oh, it's enough time. But then it's like, hey, we fly back home at 2:30 in the morning today, and it's noon, and you be in the lobby at 2:30. So it's like, you're kind of trying to do the time, and you're also not trying to ask too many questions, but they're like, I'm going to go to the Super Bowl. You're going to be stuck in an hour of traffic on the way out. Are we going to stay for the whole game? Or are we not? Am I coming back to this hotel? Am I not? So you realize like, oh, I need to bring all my stuff. But then you're like, you have like a $10,000 camera bag, and you're like, where am I putting this? You know, so you show up to a hotel and you're like, I'm going to put it at the lobby. And then the tour manager calls you. He's like, please tell me you have your bag. And then he's like, put it in this car, but not that car, because that car is going away after like they drop you off. But this car is going to be with us the whole time. His name's Hugo. Go talk to Hugo. Hugo doesn't speak English. And you're just like, I hope this guy's Hugo.
Yeah.
So you're like, yeah. So it's like, you're just like fire drill packing to go. And then you go to this thing, and then it's honestly stressful, because you're like, I'm here to shoot photo and video.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being treated to the Super Bowl, and I probably won't shoot many photos or videos because everyone was like spread out. Drew and Alex Chainsmokers were in the suite, and then I was with their agent and business manager. And it's like, if I bring my camera up to the front and then they're like, no cameras, then I'm like holding up the group, and I got to go find Hugo again. So it's like, yeah, it was stressful, but
That's how your brain works, essentially.
dude, that's just tour. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's like, tour looks like a blast. You're like, it is, but your head is spinning times 10. You know, it's like, you're just trying to be intuitive, right? Because if you're not thinking about those things, you show up with a camera, they say you can't bring it, then you have to go back, and now you're like holding up the Chainsmokers agent who just bought you a $4,000 like Super Bowl ticket. I don't know if you bought it or if you got it, whatever.
happened,
But you're like, I should be the last one holding up the group, you know? So you got to think through that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you don't bring the camera, and they're like, you're just hanging out? You didn't bring a camera? You know, it's like, you're like, oh, they wouldn't let it in. You're like, we didn't see you try.
Yeah.
You're like, dang it. Yeah, Super Bowl was crazy.
What did you, I mean, tell us more. What the frick do you do at the Super Bowl? You have your camera.
Were
you just shooting from a suite the whole time?
I just got to hang out. No, I wasn't at a suite. I was just hanging out with the business manager. They had seats, and it was actually like a really peaceful time. And we also were just so exhausted. We had been up all day, and we did like 2 shows.
Wow.
Like
around this for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they did Fanatics, which like I don't even understand how it works, but Fanatics owns like all the licenses to sell all the memorabilia. And they throw this crazy Super Bowl party every single year, and it's like every artist comes through. And Drew was like, "This is like an $8 million lineup that he didn't pay a dime for."
Dang.
And I'm like, no one's getting paid. And like the Chainsmokers set time was 15 minutes. I kid you not. And they're like, all they said is like, play the hits. So they played like
15
2
minutes.
throwbacks and like 3 of their own songs and called it. And then like Travis Scott goes up and like sang 2 songs, and then he like handed it to Meek Mill, and Meek Mill came out and sang 1 song, and then he just starts calling out like DJ Khaled. And
God, dude. Sorry, I'm a DJ Khaled guy.
I have no idea what you just said.
Who
but
else?
sure. and I'm like, this is crazy. And then he comes up, and then they're like calling Drake out, and Drake's like, I'm not coming up to the stage. And then like he doesn't come up, and they're like calling out Jay-Z, he's not coming to the stage. But then, you know, the next guy comes out, and you're like, this is, and then it's just like a party on the stage, and you're like, this is amazing for
Wow.
Fanatics. And I think the play there is like they get access to the suite. They get invited to all these parties. Good look for them. It's also at 4 p.m. the day before the Super Bowl. So it's like, you're at the Super Bowl to go to the Super Bowl and for all the after parties, and they all have other gigs that they're getting paid for, so we did that. That was a blast and it was crazy. I took some crazy photos. I'm about to post about it.
Nice.
And then from there we went and did like a night show. We were out super late till like 4 a.m. And then you wake up at like 10 o'clock, go to the Super Bowl. So we're all just pretty fried at the Super Bowl. Rihanna was sick, but the whole thing was like totally catered for live TV.
Yeah.
Wow.
Honestly,
Honestly, Super Bowl is way cooler to watch on TV. You got the ads. You have every best camera angle. It's kind of like F1 races.
that's cool. It's cool to hear from your perspective because, I mean, I'm following you on Instagram during like around that event, the Fanatics thing. And it was crazy seeing like all these legends hop up on stage and like, it's just, you never know. Like I thought that was at like 2 a.m., right? But you're like, no, it's at 4 p.m. Just a bunch of people partying during the day.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Cool.
Everyone was standing around for 30 minutes. And then like Travis Scott's team was just like, it's shot o'clock. And you're like, everyone's like, oh, it's happening. And everyone just like poured up like a shot. And like everyone, as far as you could see, had a shot. And like, that's when the drinking like started. And you're like,
whoa.
And then I'd have this photo of Drew being like this. He's like, it's like after his first shot. And he's like, we're starting to drink. Everyone's like, what time is it? And it was like 4:30. And it's like, we drank from 4:30 to 4 a.m. And you're like, your body can't do that.
Wow.
You know?
Dude, that's really cool. Just the whole experience of you getting to the Super Bowl, at the Super Bowl. One thing that I picked up is just that like you're really good at just understanding like who you should ask more questions to, like when that open line of communication is there, like when to probe more questions and when you're just not ask questions and get the job done. Because I feel like that does, I don't know, maybe Reese could speak to this, but like as you're producing and putting together teams, it probably helps to have where like, oh, I want to hire you. And they're like, cool. All right. Where do I need to be? No questions asked. Then you got the person who's like, what's the time? Like, are you compensating me for this? Am I getting reimbursed for this? What camera do you want me to, do you want me to rent gear? Like I feel like that's a lot of like, people don't know that.
Yeah. It gets weird sometimes.
Yeah, there's a balance there. I mean, the people I like hiring the most are the ones who are easiest to work with. Gladly pay more or reallocate parts of the budget to bring people like that on because it's just worth it for everybody, you know. But there's a balance everybody has to strike, you know. Obviously, you need to ask the questions that you need to know in order to figure out what you need to know to do your job right. But then if you're asking too many questions, you become a bird. And, you know, so there's a sweet spot there. It's you know, you could strike it over time.
I think hitting like one solid ask is and being like, hey, would love to find time to like go over the details of everything. And then if there's like, what details? Then you're like, I don't know, the rate, like when am I showing up? Like, how am I getting there? Like, how am I getting to this other state or this event or like, you know, then it's like and the music industry does that a lot. They just like, they don't say it. If they don't say it, then you don't talk about it. And then they have like a reason to be like, oh, we didn't know we were paying you. And you're like, oh, what?
Oh, it's like you're like there on stage, and then right after you're like, that was dope. You're like, don't even just realize you're not getting paid for that.
But then like you don't want to be probing like 20. It's just like, hey, am I getting paid? Like, how much is your rate? How much is this? It's just like, hey, can we get on a call and run through the day, get it done once, be super blunt, bold, and then just kind of get it done. But
that's cool.
Yeah, Super Bowl was crazy.
Dang.
I was exhausted coming from Japan. I got sick in Japan. It was there with the guys as well. And
dang.
I extended the trip.
People love them in Japan.
Yeah, it was cool. It was great. Best part of Japan was hanging out with a mutual friend of ours named Senzo. We lived with this Japanese exchange student our senior year.
Wow, that's cool.
I haven't seen him in 4 years.
Yo.
And
that's awesome.
And we hung out. I was like, yo, just come to Tokyo, come crash in my room. And he like came and he's like, I'm not going to stay. I was like, you should stay because we're going out the next day. Like, we're going out tonight. We're going to go to the show tomorrow. You should just like ride with us. And I was like, also, I might tell you you're not riding with us and you're going to have to take a train by yourself to the event. And he was just, he's just a legend.
He kicked it though.
Yeah, he's great.
That's awesome.
I'll give you a clip to play here on Senzo. That's
sweet.
Cool.
Jeremiah and Senzo are cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
All right. So coming back from the Super Bowl, I just want to hear, because I'm sure you guys regrouped and kind of are like, all right, now what are we working on? There's maybe bids and projects that you're closing out. what are you currently working on? And let's talk about that first. Like, what are you currently working on this moment or focused on?
Yeah.
For, let's say, the next 6 months.
Yeah. We have like a couple retainer clients that are like a little bit more traditional and more of like our bread and butter. And then we've kind of like have this thing of like, we call them home run swings. And we're just trying to like throw some Hail Marys and do cold outreach that are just like bigger budgeted stuff that we feel hyper confident with. I think also too, trying to find like clients that were the young cool kids in the room for them. So they're like a little bit more traditional, a little older, a little out of the know, but they know that they need to be on TikTok. And it's like, we come in and we're the cool people. And this is our 5th gardener of the week. We have gardening every other day on the street. It's the worst thing
all good.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, it's cool because obviously us versus them is now at a point where you have what multifaceted creative. You know what you like to touch on those projects, and Reese comes in and I'm sure really crushes it even on those Hail Marys with like coming up with the treatments and the ideas and the decks. Decks are huge. Puna, on a previous episode, we were talking about decks. Reese, I'd love to hear because I follow you on Twitter and Instagram, and I love copywriting, and I'm not a copywriter, and Ed isn't either. But I just know the value that it plays when you're trying to get these Hail Marys or when you're trying to figure out your positioning for certain conversations with pitch decks. And so how's that been? And like, share a little bit about maybe what you just came off of with this, or you're still continuing it with the whole challenge, if you will.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, totally. It's funny. The ad agency that Jeremiah referenced earlier that he interned at, after he did, I interned there when we were in college, and that's when I first learned about pitch decks and
You guys
creative
wanna pause
treatments.
for this? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you
I think we'll be all right. Yeah,
We can
it's
let it
okay.
run.
It's okay,
It'll be-
guys.
it'll be done in, like, 2
someone. They
minutes.
gotta do their job. You know, someone's cutting the grass. So
Someone's doing their job.
I think we're good on audio.
I think we're all right.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet.
You're good.
That ad agency that we interned at was the first time that I saw a pitch deck and a creative treatment, and I was mind blown because it was so beautiful. It's this PDF of beautiful images that they sourced and reference photos and mood boards and creative descriptions and stuff. And I pulled as many of those PDFs as I could when I interned there, just so I could look at them.
Cool.
And then I started incorporating that stuff into my own pitches. And it was a little bit of a blessing and a curse because I did learn a lot about that. But the way that high-level ad agency pitched creative treatments was so vivid and so wordy and so over the top. Like they were speaking to, high-level VP brand managers at huge brands, and they were trying to sell them on the vision of this huge idea. Like they already spoke the language. And
Dude.
Actually,
you can't make this up.
We low-key might want to
Everybody-
wait for this one though.
I'm getting walrus at Curse, but
frick?
yeah, we need a B-roll shot of our.
yeah. Thomas,
I
get a shot.
kid you
Get a shot of
not.
that.
I kid you not. Every other day of the week, they're like our neighbor that way. Tomorrow they've got a lawn guy. That way, the next day, across the street the next day, and the day that no one has it, the trash guy comes, and then the next day the recycling guy comes. It's insane. It makes no sense. I'm like the grumpy old person that's gonna go send a note for everyone. Like
Weed
everyone,
whackers and
It's like cut to a clip of the dude walking in back here. Like,
let's all put a name into a hat, and when we pull it, that gardening team wins everyone's account, and it gets all done on Tuesday.
that's funny.
I think you need to
Also, look at this. This guy just blows it in the corner, and that's it.
He's just blowing the
He doesn't.
leaves around.
He doesn't pick anything up. It's crazy. Our landlord has been here for like 30 years, and they're like, "We have a great vendor team," and I'm like, "Dude, your vendor team is a joke." Look at this. That's a nice bike right there. This is what my podcast wants to be. I just want to roast people, like be hyper transparent. I kid you not, have a photo in my camera roll from last week where I was setting up the ice bath, and I was like, there's just a pile of leaves in the corner. And I was like, these guys, and I have to send it every 2 months where I'm like, it's out of control, guys. Can they please?
this is insane.
Yeah, he just kind of pushes it into a corner and leaves it there.
Dude, and what I respect out of it too is like, if I walked into someone's backyard, I would at least like glance in to be like, hey, is there someone there? Do I need to wave and not like spook someone? It's like, no,
care
he
that.
has not
Sad.
even noticed we're here.
He's probably just like vibe and listen to a
behind the
podcast.
cold plunge.
Yeah, probably in the cold plunge. Dude, I asked him to hit the top of the sauna too, and that was his attempt at that. he's gonna be gone. He's out in 20 seconds.
This is
Also,
insane.
He's blowing leaves on the windiest day where leaves are just blowing back, and he's out. Thanks for ruining podcasts and just pushing leaves into a corner. What? That guy's getting paid right now. What did he do? It's crazy. Please don't cut this out, too. Everyone needs a break from entrepreneurship.
Yo, if you're still with us, let's pick it back up.
Oh my god.
That guy's an entrepreneur.
That was incredible.
That guy, time spent and money made.
Here's the deal.
10 times better than what I'm
Talk
doing.
about lack of awareness, too.
Yeah.
Like, he's not treating that yard as if it's his own.
Or he's hella aware, and he's just like, I don't give a crap.
Yeah.
Gates left open.
Thomas is shooting through windows that like are upstairs.
This guy's crazy. I'm gonna need the clip to send to my landlord and be like, look at this. That guy's getting paid. Crazy. Also, we have a driveway. We can't park in it. Our landlord's like, don't park in the driveway. Like, I have friends that come through. And then,
Wow, what?
And I was like, does she? She doesn't have any friends that come. And then we left the car there one time, and she texted us, or like the manager texted us and was like, hey, landlord says there's someone in the driveway. And I was like, dude, like, we know this because the gardeners called and said they have nowhere to park. We have amazing street parking for LA right out front.
Super.
You guys found parking
Easily.
easy? Dude, our gardeners complained that we were in their parking spot. It's our own drive.
It's like the place
It's the
that
most
you
LA thing
rent.
I've ever heard. And then they just push the leaves. It's crazy.
Up against your front door.
This is all time. I want this whole
is
section
awesome.
just for my social.
This is legendary.
posts on-
Yo, there's an entire reel on this, by the way, that we're going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
you can
awesome that
make
we
this
have the decam.
Oh wait, is this guy? I have to
This is the
apologize.
leaf guy.
This guy's picking up the leaf, or
Wow.
it's a prop, and he's just. I have to watch actually because I'm.
He's actually going to take a photo first. Yeah.
Checking his email. Making money. Nah, he just came in because his boss with the leaf blower was like, "You better get in there." And then he walked in, and now he's just swiping right on Tinder.
Paul, you want to pick back up?
Oh my gosh. Dude,
I don't know how we rebound from this.
what the heck is going on?
We could go into like a more final.
Yo, that
final
was
thought
whack.
question.
All right, Reese, real quick. I want to hear a little bit more about what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want you to
Checks.
get to the copywriting stuff that you got going on. Because I feel like it really does play a huge role into these projects that you guys are pitching for us versus them.
Yeah, totally. So, like I was mentioning earlier before our friend showed up, it was a blessing and a curse to see all these amazing, beautiful, creative pitch decks because it inspired me to use that same language myself. The difference was this ad agency that we were working with were pitching, high-level marketing VPs, whereas most of the people that many creative folks are pitching are not high-level marketing VPs. They're wearing multiple hats, running their own businesses.
True.
Or they are working in marketing, but they're not that experienced, So using this like high level insider language, I kind of shot myself in the foot doing that early on. And as time has gone on, my pitches have become shorter and more concise and more clear and more simple. Of course, still it's spiced up with creative language to try to get the visual across and incorporating good visuals to do so. But my main thing that I've been pursuing more and more is clarity, being concise with my pitches. And so that's something that I tell a lot of other creatives to do in their pitches is like write all your ideas out, be as vivid as possible, and then just start chopping. Ask yourself, would someone who's not a pro understand this? Is this insider language? How can you make it more clear? How can you make it more understandable? Because at the end of the day, most of the people that you're pitching don't know as much as you do. So
That's
you got to
good.
speak to them.
That's really good because I feel like a lot of freelancers might think that by sharing maybe like industry terms or just stuff that makes them maybe sound smarter will maybe impress the client, but depending on who they're trying to pitch, it might actually ward them off because like this is just too much. Like can you just simplify it, you know?
Yeah.
So that totally makes sense, actually.
Kind of like what we were talking about with the freelancers, you know, jumping on productions. The one who just keeps it simple, says, hey, I'm showing up, I'm doing this time, you're going to get this in the return, easy. But the one who's like, oh, should I bring this kind of gear and all this stuff? It's like, for someone who doesn't know all that stuff, it's a little overwhelming, and it's just easier to not bring them on.
It's also cool because I feel like in the video world today, and just like when you see like content campaigns go live, you can't just chop up footage and be like, here it is.
Yeah.
It has to have a story, it has to pull out emotion. There's got to be, there's got to be an actual goal to the content in order for it to perform and to actually capture eyeballs. And I think that's why you guys are like the jab, right hook when it comes to like what you're building with us versus them, because there's a lot of creatives out there that are just relying on their portfolio. That ain't going to get you anywhere. If you're trying to grow and scale and find yourself in a position where you're working with bigger brands or you're creating content that might seem a little bit more like, let's just say strategic, you have to be able to understand these things or work with people like yourself that understands copywriting, that understands persuasive writing. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally. I mean, all that stuff, anything you can learn in this zone is going to help you.
That's good. Well, we can kind of wrap this up here. I want to first shout out the hat collaboration with LSKD, because that's something that I know this is the second partnership that you've kind of had with them. Tell us about that and tell people where they can find the... What?
You haven't been sent either of them, huh?
Not yet. Actually, no, I did get the first round.
The first round?
Yeah.
This one was a lot more...
Dude, I'm not offended.
Limited.
It's capsule.
That's cool.
LSKD has been like a cool brand that we've worked with. And...
He's back.
Yeah, hold on that one.
No, tell me, you've already said I didn't get the hat, obviously.
Yeah.
But how the heck did that partnership come about?
Yeah, I've been working with LSKD. I was like their first ambassador in North America.
Wow.
They're an Australian brand, started up in like the social media boom, and then they've like passed their like 5-year mark and is crushing it. And it's like they're definitely gonna sell. It's just a matter of time and when and how much. We did a hat collab. It did really well, both in Australia and in the States. And then they reached back out, and they've gone full fitness. And I think the only reason why they like reached out to do it, like everyone on their team was kind of confused, like their designer. And he's like, yeah, what do you want to do? And I'm just like, what's your guys' goal? They're like, whatever your goal is, man. And I was like, this is weird, right? Like you guys are just trying to like try something new. He's like, yeah, this is totally experiment. Like your style is much more grungy than what we'd ever do. And so we're just like, we just are relying on you and your taste in Los Angeles, and like that being like a little bit of like a predictor of what trends are going to be, at least in like Australia or elsewhere. So we kind of just like went in with like a big streetwear hat. And the cool thing that's kind of like the nod or like the tasteful bit is like there's patchwork on mesh, which in production right now, it's pretty hard to go patchwork on mesh.
Yeah, that's cool. Like the little patches on the side, right? Like,
yeah, which you could do that on any hat, but the like on the mesh trucker hat, I guess it's
cool.
been like harder. And LSKD has like a great manufacturing and super like quality products to where they were like actually able to crush it.
That's awesome. Are the hats available right now?
Yeah, I think so. They're extremely hard to find on the website, though. I
actually saw one on eBay resale.
Bam,
Dang.
$600.
If you're on
Alibaba.
YouTube, check out Reese, man. He'd be modeling this hat like crazy.
Alibaba.
What are the colors,
Got the orange,
yellow,
we
and
got
black.
the yellow,
bro?
black.
Bro,
That's amazing.
I don't even like literally. That's my last yellow one. I don't even have any.
One-on-one right there.
that's
Bingo.
cool.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah, I think it's just so cool to hear your story, and we could talk for hours on even like how you've diversified your income with brand partnerships, being someone who's a content creator, but also now runs a freaking awesome agency. Where can people find you guys besides around Venice?
Air One.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
Jeremiah is that one blonde kid on all social handles.
Hey, okay, Reese.
Blonde without an E. BLOND. Kid.
Yep. If you do the E, there's someone that already stole that handle, and you might,
Don't do it.
don't do it.
Your parents
It's a
won't be
burner
proud.
account.
Reese,
that
where can
Paul
people find
runs.
you?
I'm at reesehopper.co.
All platforms, Twitter.
Yeah, you'll find me.
And Us versus Them agencies coming soon on social, and it's gonna be sick.
Nice.
It's going to be a big party. You're going to want to be a part of it.
Sweet. Thank you guys so much for joining the podcast.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having us.
Hey, let's go kick it.
Peace.